extraordinaire, the gemologist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents an addendum here. So I recorded this with Stefan about 10 days ago, more than that, the 19th of June, and his Kickstarter that he talks about and mentions, so that is not the focus, ends on July 4th. So you have about 4 days to back that up. I'll put links in the show notes. And okay, on with the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents. I have another in my very spontaneous and not too regular series called Why You Should Play. And today I have a special guest, Stefan Surratt, to talk to us and myself. We're going to converse, hopefully. And it doesn't sound too, anyway, it doesn't sound too guerrilla podcasty, but it will, because that's the nature of our Audio Dungeon Discord and Anchor. Well, now Spotify for podcasters podcast. But we're going to talk about why you should be playing Weird Frontiers. And Stefan is an expert, I would say, at Weird Frontiers because he's a third-party publisher of Weird Frontiers material. And so great to have you on here, Stefan. If you want to talk about what makes you an expert in discussing this.
Sure. So I'm the one-man show that is Dragon Peak Publishing. That's the thing I published under. And I published the Brimstone Cradle and the Hills That Hunger. It was a double feature adventure module, and it was the first third-party Weird Frontiers thing. There's the Last Will and Testament of Obadiah Faulkner. Stephen Newton did that. That was kind of like unofficially Weird Frontiers, but I was the first person to have the compatibility logo for it. And
Right.
And I think I'm the only one so far to actually do that. Or no, there's the Hell Train Kickstarter. That it hasn't been published yet, but that just
That's out.
did its funding goal it just hit its funding goal pretty darn recently. And I've played in that one. That's a great adventure. If folks will have to wait a little while now to pick it up.
Yeah.
But that'll be a really good one. But so yeah, I've got a couple more that I'm writing, and I ran them both. Just a couple weeks ago, and you were in one of them. It was
I
at
was in
North
one of
Texas
those.
RPG.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I was in one of those. I guess potential adventures to come. Play test. That's a great thing about this con in particular. I think there's a big showing for DCC and Weird Frontiers, and you can really get your stuff to the table, and it'll get filled really quickly. Actually, I was able to play test something as well, or run something as well, which I thought was really fun. So let's.
I was just saying, I think there's like 4, maybe 5 people, yourself and myself included, that were doing their own Weird Frontiers play tests for adventures that they wrote.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's a great game. I played it when David Beatty, the author of the Weird Frontiers book, put out that huge quick start preview,
the bootleg edition.
The bootleg edition, and I played it then. It had like character progression up to like 3rd level, and actually TJ Drennan, who does the intro and outro music, ran a short campaign. We played a couple adventures. I think we played we played 3 or 4 adventures, just different GMs actually. So TJ ran his own thing. I think Cody Mazza ran the Obadiah scenario, and then I ran the first time I ran for a few coppers more, which is something I've been developing. I've had people play a few times, so whether I develop it or not, we'll see. But it's a fun sort of sandbox adventure, that's I kind of think one of the cool things about Weird Frontiers. It's malleable for a lot of different styles. All right, so let's get to some questions. One of the reasons I think you should play Weird Frontiers is the classes. I think the classes are very evocative.
Oh yeah.
There's like 12 of them, and they're each, I think, very unique. they have their I don't know if it's necessarily niche protection, but they have their own sort of signature abilities that make them all very different to play.
Hmm. Yes, they do. Yeah, and you've got the obvious ones. You got to have a gunslinger.
Right.
But I find that people love the hellbilly, which is,
Right.
you have your magical hooch and your banjo music that's also kind of magical, and you do all sorts of crazy stuff.
Mhm.
People love, you got magical snake oil salesman. I really love the Tommy Knocker. The Tommy Knocker is cool. It's like a zombie class kind of,
Right.
intelligent undead. It's, you came back, you're tougher, you're kind of melee focused, and you have a couple like dark gifts from, the underworld. So it kind of leans you being towards being a little bit more of a black hat than a white hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the coolest part of it is really that it is the class for, oh, that character that you loved in the funnel died, have him come back as a Tommy knocker. That's explicitly what it's for. So yeah, because that always happens. You have that
Right.
guy, and you're like, oh, this dude has great stats, or you have a bunch of fun playing with that guy, or he's got the background that you love and is really fun to role play. He dies, Tommy knocker. It's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. So I'll list the classes for people who are maybe novices and don't know what
Hmm.
they are. So Bedlamite, Calavera, Gambler, Gunslinger, Hellbilly, a Luchador, which to me has always seemed to be a fan favorite when I run
Oh
is a
yeah,
Luchador,
ditto.
Montebank, yeah, Mystic Monk, Occultist, Revelator, Sin Eater, which is another one that you come back. You can come back if your character dies in a funnel, Sin Eater,
Hmm.
and then Tommy Knocker. So you have two options too. If your character dies in the funnel, you can be, the darker Tommy Knocker, and then the more, I guess, Revenant type Sin Eater. Although I guess
Yeah.
both are probably revenge focused, but that's okay.
The Tommy Knocker. Well, I don't know. I'd say the Sin Eater a little bit less than the Tommy Knocker,
Yeah,
and they've
yeah,
got very different class abilities. They play really different in
right.
what they're
Yeah,
going
so
on.
that's
So,
what's great too, right? They're not like it just reskinned, right? It's definitely
hmm.
a lot of thought into how to make these character
Yeah.
classes different. So yeah, like you mentioned, I think you said the Hellbilly is a fan favorite. The Gunslinger has a lot of unique abilities that other
Hmm.
classes don't have. I and the Luchador, to me, the Luchador, the Mystic Monk, I've seen people really enjoy
Oh yeah.
playing. Yeah, so Mystic Monk being sort of your kung fu expert traveling through the Weird West, right? So,
Yeah.
and Luchador,
Literally the show Kung Fu, basically,
yeah,
is
yeah,
really what it is.
and Luchador, Mexican wrestling
Hmm.
superhero, effectively.
People love like being like making up names for their signature moves and
Oh
doing that, and
yeah,
just they get so people get so, and me too, when I've played one, you get so into describing how you're dropping your elbow, you're
yeah,
you're
yeah.
putting dudes in a camel clutch or whatever. People have so much fun with that class.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's one of to me, like the highlights. I do
Hmm.
also, if I even just looking, and this book is huge. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it's a huge book, and I know that can be off-putting to some people. The rule book itself is close to 900 pages, if not over 900. But what I like, I mean, it gives you like a welcome chapter, and then it jumps right into the class. Make your character. I
Yeah.
really like that about how David Beatty has organized this, and then it goes through the rules. So
Hmm.
right at the beginning, right, you get how to play, and then you don't. I don't know. I generally don't like books that tell me the whole backstory of the world from the beginning of creation until
Yeah.
now, and you're like, well, but I want to jump in and play, man. I don't want to skip to chapter 5 to learn how to make a character. And I think
No, I
that's
I
another
think
plus to getting and playing Weird Frontiers is that it is kind of, I wouldn't say player focused, but it's like, hey, if you're a player and you don't really care, you just want to make your cool character, you don't really care
yeah,
all the
get up
stuff
and
that the
go.
get up and go, right? And you don't care. The GM will set the world up, right? So we don't need
Hmm.
to worry about that. We just want to make our character and then we can go. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of neat.
And it's got a good section in there that'll, you'll get like a paragraph describing what's going on in Tennessee. Just and you get a cool map that's got some, just stuff in there. It's got town generators. Um, I mean, there's a huge amount of content in there. If you can get your hands on the print run, it's going to be a huge book. But on Drive Through RPG, they've Drive Through RPG
Split
can't
it.
do print on demand
Yeah.
for 900 pages, so they've split it into a more player facing section and then a more judge facing book
Yeah,
as
which I
well.
think is
So.
a great decision
hmm
to
And
do that.
and each of those they have their own art there. So he didn't cheap out. He saw that he kind of needed to split
Sorry
it, and
about that.
he went and paid for some more art. So
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Usually I have my
um,
phone silent. I apologize. Usually I have my
I
phone
didn't even hear
silenced.
it. I didn't even
Yep.
hear, but it's
Okay.
good. I'll say what you're saying about like the get in and go. I think people, if you're looking at a Weird West type game, everyone or pretty much everyone's going to think about Deadlands first. Deadlands has that like huge meta plot where it kind of the same reason that I don't play Star Wars games is because um sticking to quote unquote canon can be really difficult at times. You kind of sometimes you're free to ignore it. There's no RPG police coming after you, but sometimes you have that player that's going, well, who will well actually you and tell you, well, no, Coruscant's not like that. Oh no, Tatooine is would have this over here, and so I've experienced a lot of that trying to run Star Wars games. But I like that
Huh.
Weird Frontiers is very canon light. There's some implied setting, and you can really mold it to be exactly what you want, and you're not shackled by anything that you might get hung up on or your players might get hung up on. It's even pretty loose about what year it is. It's just kind of like, oh well, the Civil War ended recently, and then some cultists did some stuff recently, and now magic is back. Or it was always there. Now it's just more apparent. Is kind of what a lot of it boils down to, and
Hmm.
then yeah, gives you just enough to go have fun and make it your own.
Yeah, it's a lot of freedom I feel with that because I mean truth be told I do ignore the meta plot in Deadlands except for the they have these like big bads that maybe you'll run into, which would be like an end game for a campaign.
hmm
But what happened in the background, it really doesn't come into play, honestly, for me in Deadlands. But I like that that Weird Frontier is that is definitely a plus and why you should play. Is it that you're right? It's things are vague, right? So something happened at some time in the past, but we're not sure, which kind of gives it away like a a Dark Tower gunslinger feel, right? Because like the
Yeah.
everything in that the time is so warped and vague, and you can totally play upon that, which lends it to putting your own weird into the Weird Frontiers. And yes, yes, they have like patrons that are allude to Call of Cthulhu, to Yoth Sagari mythos stuff. Um, but they also have how to put Weird Frontiers to MCC, how to put DCC to Weird Frontiers. So it suggests really that it's pretty malleable in
Oh
that
yeah.
regard. And you
I'm
can.
Yeah, and there's a ton of adventures. Like I think like the Arwich Grinder is that's in crawl number 9. That's like a perfect funnel that you could just move right over into Weird Frontiers. Night of the Bog Beast was their like DCC horror module last year. I think that
Mhm.
would be another perfect one set in some swampy area, and you
Right.
would hardly have to change anything because the stat blocks are so darn similar. You just take some bows away and replace them with pistols.
Yeah, and hey, if you wanted to do something like even way out of the box, like some sort of instead of playing it in North America, maybe Central
hmm
or South America, you could do some. I'm sure there are plenty of jungle-based DCC adventures that you just plug in these characters and go, and
hmm
then and I think it fits in the genre. Be like you know, not Lewis and Clark, the ones in Africa, uh, who traveled along the Congo and explored. That's totally that era, at least in our
Oh
history.
yeah.
But
Have,
Stanley and Livingston, right? So you could do something like that, I think, with Weird Frontiers because it's that
mhm.
sort of you know 19th century period, but not in any sort of chronological order.
Yeah, yeah. Take your DCC adventure that has a secret ape man city and
Oh,
stick it
right.
in some jungle somewhere. Make it the untamed northeast, or I mean northwest. Or stick it up in the Yukon, or like you said, down in South America and the rainforests.
Hmm.
You could do it. It's a weird West game, so it's all America focused, but you've got a lot of freedom. I don't know what the heck much anywhere else would look like, but there's so many adventures you can just kind of plug and play.
Plug and play, I think. Yeah, I think that's great. So, a big, I don't know, sometimes a big stumbling block, I would say, for people in DCC and DCC adjacent is the spell casting. Um, like,
Hmm.
like there's this whole section that's actually from page. It's a big section from
It's
page
like 300
178,
pages.
from 178 to 532. It's well, fortunately, like he's kind of blocked it out, like the edging is black, so you know where the spells are. But that's a
Hmm.
huge section of spells. But I mean, I've always thought in DCC and Weird Frontiers is no exception here. That I don't like the fire and forget spells, and they always kind of go, and I like the
Hmm.
sort of, you got to make a test to make a spell, because it makes Magic to me more chaotic, and weird, and that's
Yeah,
what we're trying to get for.
Magic doesn't feel like a science. It feels
Right.
like something that you're tapping into and you barely get it.
Yeah, and you shouldn't tap into, and that goes for both, the spellcasters like the occultists, and then the priest types like the revelator, in here,
Hmm.
that tap into this strange. So I think that's a plus. I think, you know that the spell list with, like, let's say if I turn to a spell, um tracer paint device, whatever that is. Oh, these are for, like, so the spells included in here are also like things that the weird scientist person does, like the bedlamite does too.
Yeah.
So in here, so that you could, that is also not clear cut. It doesn't just always work. You have to roll, and you see how well you roll and see how good the device is, right? So I think
Yeah,
that's
your
kind of
mad
neat.
the Bedlamite's mad science
The
is not
mad
going to be that
scientist, yeah,
reliable. The
perfect.
Montebank, that's the snake oil salesman. That
Yep,
snake oil, who knows what he's putting in there.
yeah,
It's not going to be reliable either. Yeah, they got a whole lot of spellcasters in here, and there's a whole lot of spell. And there a lot of them are like a good utility spell. I got like last time I played it, doing a Montebank, and I used a spell that was all about like mining, and I got a really high roll, and it was like, oh, you detect where like precious gemstones are going to be within like 500 feet, and you can breathe noxious gases that might be
mm,
found in mines, and you have dark vision, so you can see in mines and stuff. And it like solved a huge portion of the adventure that I was playing in. So yeah, they're not just all like another weird bullet spell that's like cowboy themed. Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot of
It's
cool
it's
stuff.
very evocative. I mean, and I liked it. I mean, I'm looking at. I turned to a page where there's a bunch of fifth level spells, so very powerful spells, and
Oh yeah.
I mean, you need a 17 or more to succeed on these. But then when they do, they just, it's crazy,
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, you get to
Like
change
boulder
the course
dash,
of things.
you summon animated boulders of different strengths that just, it's like a stampede of boulders. So, things like that I think are very, very cool. And I like the magic. I like that it's not, right. It's not always the same, like you just said, right. It's not just, I cast fireball and this is what it does. Since I'm, fifth level, it also does 5d6 or whatever. And yeah, yay. But this is like, okay, I roll the dice. Okay, now what does it do? And I
Oh,
mean,
well, use some luck. Yeah.
yeah, I use some luck. I want to boost it up. You know, um, and I think that's what, like, people look at the table and like, oh, what can I get? And then when they get it, they're like, oh, this is so cool. So, it was really fun. At least when I was running my game, I mean, that was one of the fun parts as a spellcaster, rolling and then seeing what happened based on their roll, which I thought was kind of neat. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. I'll say I really love the town. I mentioned it earlier. It's got a great town generator in there that
oh
is like
yeah,
a I don't know how many pages long it is, but it's a really good thing for just like being able to whip up like a Western town and have it and some tables to add enough flavor to give it something unique about it. Um, like in my adventure, the Brimstone Cradle, it's like the PCs are on their way to a town. I didn't make a town in there because like just use that generator. It's so good.
Yep, yep.
Um,
And then you could generate NPCs,
mhm.
what they look like, what the town looks like. It's really cool. They give an example as well. So I think it's, yeah, it's really kind of fun to do. And what, like, depending on how you roll for the random town, like what kind of places they might have in the town. So it's just a few pages, right, to do that. I think
Yeah.
that's really neat. So again, that lends itself to no, it's a place where you wander, but there's no necessarily structure to wander. You can make
Hmm.
it your own thing. So I know that this could also be a hindrance, but I think it's a feature. The gun deck. What do you think of
Yeah.
that?
Um,
Well, does it, you can
is
explain
there,
the you can explain the gun
yeah,
deck, and then we can discuss. So I've been
sure.
explaining too much,
So
but
no, you're all good. So anytime you shoot a gun to represent how unreliable guns of this, day and age are, you draw from a deck of cards. Aces and eights are a dead man's hand, so your gun's gonna misfire. Jacks, queens, and kings are gonna give you plus one, two, three to attack and damage, respectively. So jacks plus one, queen plus two, king plus three. And then jokers are going to be automatic critical hits or automatic fumbles, depending on if it's the red or the black joker. And you're going to get some either boon tokens or hex tokens, which work pretty similar to like fleeting luck in DCC Lankmar. Um, but you do that every time you draw a card, and like other class, the gambler uses their deck of cards for a special power also. That's basically you kind of like Gambit from X-Men. That's what the
mhm.
gambler can do with cards. But yeah, everyone who's shooting a gun, not a bow or something like that, but a gun, and that counts if it's a pistol or a Gatling gun or a cannon. You draw a card and roll a die every time you're gonna shoot.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it? Because you've run the game, you've played the game, you've probably seen some people get used to it, and you've probably seen some people kind of struggle to remember how it works.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing is people struggling to remember how it works, and when they're using a gun to remember to do that. And
Hmm.
then I generally speaking, and there's also for example, like the generally speaking, people like it. They
Yeah.
like they like that. I think they signed up for the game because they've heard about it. They understand the strange nature, the gonzo nature of a DCC type game, which Weird Frontiers is, and they roll with it. Some people not used to it kind of can get a little, I don't know if it's frustrated or irritated, but yeah, there is sometimes some pushback, and sometimes maybe they casually forget. I've noticed in play,
Yeah.
but I mean, if they like, for example, the gunslinger can mitigate that, right? For example, there's
Yeah. It
mechanics of,
can mitigate the bad luck with
yeah,
bad draw of the cards by spending a point of
betting
luck.
luck, yeah. So I think there's ways to around it. I think it gives players a lot of agency. I think it goes not just the unreliability of guns at the time, really, but to me, it's that sort of the curse of the dead man's hand. What happened to Wild Bill Hickok. That's to
Hmm.
me how I imagine manifesting. It's the curse of firearms in this weird West setting, right? And that's
Yeah.
why you gotta do this. I know one player in my game, they found some weapons that use like steam, and he kind of latched onto that, so he didn't have to roll from the gun deck. So
Yeah.
it wasn't gunpowder. So hey, I mean
It's true.
that's how he kind of
I mean, and
dealt with it, right?
if a group doesn't like it, you I mean you'll lose a little bit of flavor if you don't
Yeah,
use the gun deck, but like I mentioned earlier, there's no RPG police coming after you. You can just not do it.
right.
And you're not gonna like change the system and break it by not doing it. People kind of have maybe some similar feelings about the grit checks.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
grit for fear. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
so the first time you see some horrible monster, you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to roll basically it's a will save, and you have a grit score, which is kind of like sanity. And then if you see that monster a second time, you're not going to roll it because you've already seen the horrible ghoul. But if you see like a pack of 30 ghouls, then you're going to roll because that's a really different situation. It's not one ghoul. And the effects of the will of failing it might be like, oh, you're really afraid, and -2 on your actions next round, or it might be you're gonna run away and not do anything except run away until you make, a will save, the save that you failed, and you can try that every round.
Oh yeah,
Or
I had a horrific one in
yeah,
my game at North Texas. Some guy, he failed his grit, um, and he rolled so badly that his character would have had a heart attack. Well, he
no,
did know he did have a heart attack, and he had to
but
roll a will like
a
a con
fortitude save or
fortitude
die.
save or die. Yeah, so it can keep it could.
Wow.
I mean, players like I think he had some boons, so he was able to help that
Yeah.
out, right? But and
Yeah,
roll.
you can spend, if you have boons, you can spend a boon to re-roll a bad
Yeah, I
roll,
think he
or
bumped
give
up the
yourself a
dice. He
plus
bumped up
one.
the dice to do that. So, but
Yeah.
but still, like that's what can happen in a grit check. I don't know. I like it. It kind of falls into the horror field, but again,
Yeah.
like Stefan said, right? It's a West game, at its core, and there's so much information. You can even this is kind of what I thought is kind of cool. You can have like simple weapon rules or very advanced weapon rules, depending on how much your
Hmm.
group wants to get into the nitty gritty of different types of guns and how they work and if they're how they're different. Like a Colt 44 versus a Peacemaker or something like that. Colt 44 Navy versus like a Peacemaker or something like that, and you can
Yeah.
get into that. Different years of Winchesters or whatever, but you don't have to. You could just have like pistols and rifles, right? So I think that's also a cool feature. So you can add in the grit, you can add in the gun deck. Um, Again, like no one's going to come and tell you not to, but I feel that that's why I play and want to play Weird Frontiers, is that it adds these like esoteric, unexplainable, random elements that I think makes it a much stronger game for me.
Hmm. And one thing I didn't do it in the couple of adventures I published already, because I wrote them, but the system was still new. Like I wrote those adventures using the bootleg rules and then updated them once the full rule set came out. Um,
Yeah.
but one thing you can do is, for anyone out there who's like feeling a little iffy on the grit thing, you can have a special grit result. Oh, and you can just like have a little kind of, if you're writing an adventure, I would say, like, I'm planning on doing this on a couple I've written and playtested. Just like put a special thing in there that says, oh, if a PC fails a grit save here, they do this. This happens, or roll on this special table. You see kind of a similar thing in Mutant Crawl Classics of like people having a special table just for doing an artifact check on this one
Hmm.
artifact.
Yeah.
So, um, I
Yeah.
mean,
You could do that.
again, judges are empowered to change whatever the heck you like, and you're not going to break the game by making it more fun for your table and fit the kind of game that you and your friends want to play.
Right. And I think I think the setting is evocative enough too that you can even put the agency back in the player's hand. Hey, this is something very horrific. How do you think your character will react to this as you fail a grit check, right? And then
Oh, that's a great idea.
let them decide how it goes. I know I've been using that actually in Call of Cthulhu instead of rolling some weird random thing that you suddenly develop this phobia that's totally unrelated
Yeah.
to the thing you're saying. So why not let the player go, oh man, yeah, this is so horrible what I just saw or what just happened that I do this and this is why. And that the player, I mean, a lot of players will love that. They love contributing to the narrative, right? And
Hmm.
it doesn't have a mechanical effect on the overall story, but it empowers the characters to think about how their the players how to think how their characters feel about what's happening in the game. And yeah, and I think a game like this with so many, even like you show people pictures in the book or whatever, or in the adventures, they will give back and contribute to the narrative in that
Hmm.
way. So I think that's another great use of the grit check. Excuse me. So, all right. I'm sure there's some other things that why you should play this. No, there are. There
There's
definitely.
some stellar adventures. So there's like two adventures in the core rule book, which also, if you do the print on demand, or you get like, basically you're gonna pay $100 for the print on demand thing that's split into 2 pages. and you'll, of course, get the PDF from it. And folks might think $100, that's a whole lot of money, and you're not wrong. But it's nearly 1,000 pages. It's over 900. You're paying like a penny a page. So I mean, you get a whole lot for your money there, even though you do kind of have to spend a good chunk of money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's 2 adventures in there. The five
Mm-hmm.
adventures are written by a bunch of like awesome, mainline adventures that were part of the Kickstarter, were written by Dave Beatty, the creator. They're written by other amazing like DCC writers like Brendan LaSalle and Harley Stroh and Bob Brinkman and Michael Curtis. So like there's just like really high quality stuff. And I know Dave is working on more adventures. And then you got some folks like me and Stephen Newton who've published a couple things, and hopefully I can convince you, Carl, to
Yeah.
join the esteemed society that is third party Weird Frontier Publishing.
Yeah, that'd be
And
fun. Yeah, that would really be fun. Yeah, they're great adventures. I'm going to put the link in the show notes to where you can get them from the Goodman Games
mhm.
website. So all those adventures are available, and actually, your adventure is also available
Yep,
from the
it's
Goodman
on
Games.
there.
So that's really great. And actually, that's I guess that's another maybe that's another cool thing you should mention. I know you talked about it before. How how cool it is to write third party stuff for
Oh
Goodman
yeah.
Games.
It's
You
super
kind of
simple. They you just like I basically how it goes is I write up an adventure. Um, I don't need to do, I don't give them a cut. If you publish on for 5e on DM Guild, WotC takes, 20%, and Drive Through RPG or One Bookshelf under the DM Guild, they take 30%. So you're gonna get 50% of whatever profits there are. But Goodman Games doesn't take a cut. I only so if you're wanting to make money, you should probably pick a different avenue because you're not going to make much money.
no, but
But you don't have to give any special cut. They make the licensing thing very simple. I did it again recently. I've got a Meet and Crawl Classics thing going, and I wrote it, I play tested it. I even got some art. I put it in layout, and I sent it to Joseph Goodman and said, "Hey, this is the thing I'm working on. Can I get like a tentative approval?" And I'll put the compatible logo on there. And he went, "Yep, looks good. Show me the final product when it's done." And just to give that final okay. And that's what I did. And it's basically the same thing with Dave Beatty. With Weird Frontiers, you have to ask Dave and you have to ask Joseph, and you get to put both compatible logos on it.
mm-hmm,
So that, an extra step of asking 2 people. But Dave, I don't think he's pretty busy with his with day life. He's not paying the bills off of this.
mm-hmm,
But he'll get back to you. He's always given me feedback on the adventures that I've sent
mm-hmm.
him to, of just like, hey, make this harder, or hey, you're using this one enemy too much. Like add in, change this encounter or one of the others to be a new enemy. Make it feel more unique and exciting that way. Or, oh, I love this part. Get a player to do this. Like make sure you really like encourage it in the writing so that this will happen. Um, so it's easy to do, doing the third party licensing thing. The hard part's just writing, which my best advice to anyone who does want to do that is the secret is just write. Um, it's the blank page is scary. It gets less scary if you just keep on plugging away. There's not a real secret beyond keep writing and pay an editor. They'll make you look good.
Cool. Yeah, I would agree. So David Beatty does keep an ear out for all things Weird Frontiers. He knows he won't sit in. He might not sit in your game, but he knows people.
Mm,
He knows a lot of people, and they might sit in your game, and then they tell him, "Oh, I played in this Weird Frontiers game because
yeah.
like it was cool that at North Texas he goes, oh yeah, I heard about that game, and yeah, hey, and I told him I talked to you as well, or we're in conversation regularly, and he said, oh yeah, either send it to Stefan or send it to me, and yeah, we'll take a look at it. But you're right, getting that discipline and taking that first step to fill that blank page, I think that's my biggest hurdle right now, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. Hey, so just outline it in some kind of way and start small. If you break it down into, it seems like a big task, just break that big task down into multiple smaller tasks,
Hmm.
and it's going to feel a lot more accomplishable.
Well, cool. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about, since you mentioned it actually, talk about your latest project then in this last part of the
Sure.
segment.
Yeah, we'll keep it mostly weird, Weird Frontiers focus. This isn't Weird Frontier. I'm doing another Mutant Crawl Classics thing. Um, it's called the Technomancer of Candy Mountain. It's on Kickstarter. I think it's going to run until July 4th. Um, and yeah, that should be the date. Maybe it's July 5th. I forget exactly. But it's a full
July
size
4th,
adventure.
July 4th.
July. All right. Okay, I was right. So back at before then, the Technomancer Candy Mountain Level 3 MCC
Oh,
adventure.
level three.
It
I like
is,
that.
yeah, and it's a 32 pages long. So it's like there's a video on there of like me doing a really focused 2 hour version of it, but it's an adventure that is best if you kind of let it breathe over a couple of sessions or something like that, because it's a sandboxy. There's the Candy
Nice.
Mountain region. You got a functioning candy factory up there, and I listened to the audiobook of Willy Wonka. I combined it with some other things like the Candy Kingdom from Adventure Time, a little bit of Wizard of Oz, and definitely the song Big Rock Candy Mountain. Um, and turned up, have the operator of the candy factory. His name is Was a Wilder, and I've definitely turned up the sinister on him. There's definitely a lot of human rights abuses. There's definitely the corporate culture in the candy factory is pretty bad. There's a company shanty town around, and there's a good bit to sandbox around, but it all kind of points you to the candy factory that serves as a dungeon.
Mhm.
And oh, excuse me. But there's also a candy people class called the Sweeties. So you can play a little, be a little milkshake lad or a peanut brittle lady. People have a ton of fun being a cute little, candy person.
Well, that it does sound really fun. I guess you could, since we are doing talking about Weird Frontiers, I guess you could import
Hmm.
it into Weird Frontiers.
I mean, yeah, you could make Was a Wilder a weird bedlamite.
Yeah.
It'd definitely be a different vibe than the kind of like horror, themed Weird
Oh,
West.
it's like
This would
this
be a
mutant call.
goofier one.
Yeah, mutant call classics kind of dips more into the Gonzo, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I've also got a little zine that I'm calling Marvels of the Multiverse. I've
Oh,
got
cool.
like the Benisons and Dooms from Lankmar. I MCC-ified those. I got mutation duels because I realized you got spell duels over in DCC, but you didn't have anything written up like that for Mutant Crawl Classic. So I stuck that in there. I got another class called the Jungle Juice Drinker, which is basically you kind of use a deed die to make weird concoctions and drink them, and it's very kind of like you got to work with your judge a little bit. It
Hmm.
says go make it out of that weird mushroom you found, go make it out of that monster you killed, go make it out of that robot you shut down, and make
Hmm.
yourself a microchip salsa so that gives you lasers or some or a better boost or some kind of security override for a little while.
Hmm.
And there's also a funnel in there called the Millennials Awaken, which is a MCC funnel that is actually takes place on on the remnants, the shattered, broken moon that is above Terra AD. It takes place on there, and you have a in-game 2 hour time limit for basically you don't have much air. It's low orbit. There's a very limited amount of oxygen. Get to the space elevator and get back down to Earth. You have 2 hours to do it. So, and
Hmm.
the Candy Mountain Adventure, that's like 10,000 words. In this funnel, it's like 2,000 words because I want
Wow.
to make it short,
Right.
both in writing and in that game time. So you have a really good way to go to the game store, introduce folks, and only ask 2 hours of them instead of 4 hours.
Hmm.
Is what most folks think of as a typical game session.
Oh,
So
cool.
I got that, and I got some patches, I got some T-shirts, I got the whole the back catalog,
Hmm.
and the first stretch goal is also it's a totally different thing. First stretch goal on that is for a DCC system hack that I'm working on. It's like some beta playtest rules that folks will get. we're pretty darn close to getting that stretch goal. But I
I
thought
think
this would be a good
so.
way to get into the hands of
Yeah, it's
people that
really close to that
um,
first stretch goal.
yeah, but
That
I thought this would be a good way to get into the hands of folks that like DCC, so they won't go unnoticed, and hopefully I get some good feedback because it's a wizard school genre hack
ah
of the game. So it's all about it's very like investigative mystery focused.
hmm
So it plays familiar but different.
oh nice. Well, great. Last thing I want to talk about. We have a little bit of time here, I think. So,
Yeah,
how did you think? How do you think your playtest went? And I can talk about how my feel mine
sure.
went too. Um,
Yeah, so
so,
I did
specifically the
the
Weird
Weird
Frontiers.
Frontiers.
Yeah,
Yeah, I ran a couple. One called The Sinister Secret of the Slugman. That was the one you were in,
I
and I
played
ran
that
a
one. Yeah.
now I thought that went really well. I had changed a couple of things, and that was the first time that they had been included in a play test. And I
hmm
also ran another one called Big Trouble for a Little Blood, which is based off the movie Big Trouble in Little China.
Cool.
And that was a bunch of fun as well.
hmm
Players had a lot of laughs for had very inappropriate jokes at the bar that had some vampire prostitutes.
mm
A lot of bad jokes.
Yeah. Sometimes those are sometimes they get in the way. Sometimes they work. I think.
It worked. It worked. I was glad there
Good.
wasn't any kids at the table, and I
Yeah.
was I was going, oh, I don't remember if I put like 18 plus on this, sign up, but I should have.
Yeah. Yeah, I put on mine. I ran something called Blue Candy Clouds. So there it was kind of like allusions to. Again, it's part of like I set my first adventure that I wrote or have an
Mhm.
outline for in southwestern New Mexico, and this one's in like north of Albuquerque, Sangre de Cristo Mountains, kind of.
Mhm.
But it could be placed honestly anywhere in any sort of mountainous terrain. But it was kind of an allusion to Breaking Bad and Heisenberg and
Okay.
that sort of I put an adult tag on it because of the drug idea, methamphetamine, and the sort of blue candy. So that
We got
and
some like a Montebank making, Wild
yeah,
West meth, essentially,
yeah,
something like that.
essentially, yeah, and yeah, so he's a snake oil salesman, and they're a posse that goes to chase him down, and they run into his minions, and then his creations, and then him at the
Okay.
end. So I thought it went pretty well. We definitely had a mix of people who have never played Weird
Mhm.
Frontiers and who had definitely had played DCC, if not Weird Frontiers. So I think they really enjoyed it. I think the everyone really we had two gunslingers in it, but we had one gunslinger who focused on using his rifle and one who focused on his pistols. So it worked out pretty well, I thought. And then
Okay, cool.
the Revelator was the superhero, the hero of that. It was cool. I mean, the things he tried worked. The dice were with him, so it was really kind of neat. And then the other player played a luchador, and there was a scene where he was able to jump onto the back of the big the mechanical contraption that the bad guy was driving. So that was awesome. So it's good. I think it worked really
Nice.
well. I think I finally got. I feel like the first time I've learned from sitting at your table and reading through some of these adventures at cons, to try to really make it focused at a con game.
You
And then you
do.
can expand it in the if it actually ever goes to product. But like the I think the first one I did for a few coppers more was kind of a little sandboxy, and I had to kind of rush things. But this one just went smoothly, straight, kind of
Excellent.
linear. But they did avoid.
Well,
They did
for
a
a
great
con
thing.
game,
Yeah.
you're like, this is 4 hours. You know what you signed up for, and you're here because you signed up for that.
hmm
And I think it's best if you like you when it's a game like that, and maybe it's like an online planned thing,
hmm
or it doesn't matter if it's that or an actual convention, but like start with a clear goal at the beginning to get them
hmm
going in the right direction, and that's going to help out a lot.
Well, in a non-con game, I noticed that yours too had when I played in the Slugman that there are definitely like because of the exploration part
Mhm.
that you have in that game, there's definitely room for expansion, and you could go on a tangent or get
Oh
distracted.
yeah,
Yeah. So the same thing. What I tried to incorporate there is some things that happen while they're getting to the main place, and then they actually avoided a whole possible like if you've read the Gunslinger spoiler,
hmm
a whole uh town of
Oh yeah.
Tull situation. They avoided that.
Ah,
So, they, I thought that was brilliant how they did it. So and they really got to the conclusion a lot faster. And I like it when players do that, honestly. So it's good. So it's good. I think it has I think I loved yours. It has a lot of room, like I said, for that, not just a 4 hour block, but to
hmm.
explore all those different things. Unfortunately, we didn't get to explore your dungeon, right? Your steamboat dungeon, right? But
I mean, there it's not a huge area, so no,
uh-huh.
you guys explored it pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's left a little loose because I don't really know what a steamboat is gonna be laid out
But
like.
I guess that's a cool
I
thing.
tried to do my research, but
Uh,
the secret is the players aren't generally going to know
yeah, they're
either
not
unless
gonna
you get
know.
like one guy who's like, no, I am a steamboat historian or
And I want to
something.
go. I want to go to the boiler room and see, anyway and drive it away.
Yeah,
They could, but I guess that's for the product, right? Like you do
yeah,
in the con game. I feel like you just try to get to the end, a big fun conclusion, and then if the product ever gets developed, then I can like for this
yeah.
for this von this Heisenberg clone, I can put like his different labs for all his weird stuff,
That'd be
right?
cool.
And then they could
Yeah,
explore it. Yeah, so
that'd be really cool. Yeah, you guys ended up. So how did you? Tell me in the game that I ran that you were in, you guys ostensibly you're going after this guy who thinks there's a bunch of Confederate gold, and in the end you find out there's no gold. There's
yeah,
only worthless like Confederate dollar bills, but
that's hilarious
you
to me.
end okay, good. I'm glad you liked it. And you do end up
It
with a steamship that needs a
yeah,
bit of repairs, but
sure,
like
but
I
yeah.
you
Or a
got a
spaceship.
steamship that
I couldn't tell if it was a steamship or a spaceship, which is great. I
no
think it's a very vague conclusion to me, but
yeah, but
which is
yeah,
okay, which is okay.
that's the real treasure is you got a freaking ship that has
Yeah.
cannons and you can go sailing down the Mississippi to do something.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's cool. No, the Confederate dollars thing, it cracks me up because I remember there was a big, I feel like it was like Dukes of Hazzard episode where they were like so wanting to get the Confederate gold. Well,
Yeah.
Boss Hog, the Duke boys are always good, so they never care about that greedy stuff. But they wanted to, I don't know, they wanted to get it, they wanted to get the gold to a museum or something like that, right?
Hmm.
And whereas Boss Hog and Cletus wanted to, get it for themselves, and then ended up only being Confederate dollars, which is great for a
Yeah.
museum, right? It's a great historical reference points, but I thought
Yeah,
that
that
totally
was one of
reminded me
the
that I love it.
things
I love that twist.
that
That's a good
wasn't
idea to have a twist at the end, some sort of weird twist. Oh, like I thought,
yeah.
and I felt like I kind of wrote a few things after I played yours because I had the benefit of play testing mine after years. So I kind of wrote, so because of that twist, I wrote in a few little twists. Like I had the big I had Heisenberg have an assistant, and I think they named the assistant Jessica Pinkman, you know, which is
Well, of
Jesse,
course.
of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had the players name it, and then I had the players name the town. Sometimes I love doing that kind of stuff. Name the
Oh
town
yeah.
that they went to. Fortunately, they did not call it Santo Poco, but they call it, I think, San Pablo, something like that. But it was cool. It was fun. I had a good time, and thanks for the inspiration all the time, actually, because we talk a lot, and I think it's great. One of these
Yeah,
days.
hey, I'm glad that I can be inspirational.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good time. And I wish I could have played in your game. My schedule was pretty
You
stacked.
were every time I saw you, I feel like every time I ran into you, you were running something or running to something.
Yeah.
So which is
I
good. It's
had
good.
some time in between, but yeah, I had like two or three games like every day.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted. I can only feel like I can run like two games. When I've run multiple, more than that, or I think I
Hmm.
ran like at ChupaCabraCon one time, like 4 to 6 games, and I was exhausted. So I think I want to play too, right? So.
Yeah, I find I can do like one game a day. If I start doing two games a day, I'll lose my voice.
Hmm.
Because I'm having to be loud for 8 hours a day at that point, and I
Right.
can't do it. I can play more because I don't have to talk that much. But
Hmm.
so one game a day for me.
All right. Well, it was great to see you up at North Texas RPG Con. Thanks for coming on and talking about Weird Frontiers and DCC in general and your really cool MCC project. And I look forward to further conversations in the future. And thanks again for coming on to the Geomologist Presents.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
It's an orgy of game and everybody knows your name.
Vortex is RPG.
The organizer and Satan are one and the same.
Vortex is RPG.
And we'll all be bumping uglies playing in shows games.
Vortex is RPG.
North Texas RPG Con. First weekend in June at the Westin Inn in scenic Irving, Texas. Pack those dice bags and a spare liver.
Vortex is RPG.